Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to Naily by Nature. My name is Naily. On this channel we talk about social issues, spirituality, law of attraction, self-improvement, self-actualization, and so much more. So if any of those topics interest you, please remember to hit the subscribe button and support your girl. If you enjoyed this video, please remember to thumbs up and comment below. I love hearing from you guys. So let's get into today's video. I really wanted to make this video for a while, and I feel like I'm finally in a place to talk about my spiritual awakening to make this video. So I feel like right now so many people are going through a spiritual awakening, and I know this because a lot of my friends are coming to me and they're telling me that they're going through a spiritual awakening, because a few years ago, when back in 2017 when I started my spiritual journey, and I was talking to friends about this, I felt like a lot of people just didn't understand what I was going through, but now I feel like people are awakening everywhere, and I really think it's because of the pandemic. And so I really wanted to make this video because I feel like there's so much misinformation on YouTube, and like everyone's just kind of talking about their experience, but they're also directing people in the wrong way. Like, I feel like some spiritual awakening videos can make people really afraid. Like, there's so much on YouTube about like witchcraft and spirituality, and like I think that really pushes people away who might be religious, whatever religion, but because people are making spirituality seem like it's witchcraft, it's keeping people away from really learning and understanding the spirituality aspect of an awakening, and they're thinking it's all like magic and like dealing with demons and stuff like that. And so I wanted to make my video and just kind of talk to people about my awakening. And it's an awakening that has been happening for years, and a spiritual awakening does take a long time. It started in 2017 with me, and I got really interested in learning about it, and it was really beautiful. But my life really turned upside down around like 2019, and then just like life fell apart in 2020. And I feel like the way Western culture talks about spiritual awakening can make it seem like it's like this beautiful thing, and that life just changes for you, and you just use law of attraction, you're constantly manifesting this good stuff. A lot of Western culture doesn't talk about like the rough patch of an awakening, and that's why I wanted to make my video, because that's a part of it that's really important. But I also want to shape it in a way that doesn't make people afraid, in the way that people are making videos making people afraid of like spirituality through like witchcraft, or the conspiracy theory about like people using the blood of children and all, like shit like that. Like, it can make people feel like spirituality isn't for them. The thing is, spirituality is for everyone, although not everyone goes through an awakening in this lifetime. So anyways, I started my awakening in 2017. I got really interested, and I started reading a lot of books, and then when my life fell apart in 2020, that's when my spiritual awakening just like took a turn. And it felt like every aspect of my life, whether it be my work, my relationships with friends and family, my relationships with a partner, all of these things just kind of fell apart. And when I started to ask myself, like, okay, if I'm not my work, if I'm not my relationships, if I'm not my partner, if I'm not money, then who am I? I thought that all of these things made me who I was. My occupation, the friends I had, the family I had, how people perceive me, how I perceive myself. But then when you lose all those things, you really are like, I'm just a body. And if I'm just a body, then who's the person inside? And that's when things really started to change for me. And I think that when you go through a spiritual awakening, you are going to be triggered, and the universe will send you certain people to trigger you, and then the universe will also send you people to help you. So when my life was falling apart and I was losing like really close friends, I was losing my partner, the love of my life, it was such a it was such a horrible feeling, you know, because I was having an existential crisis. You know, I was questioning who I was. I was questioning, you know, why am I here? What's my purpose? And it was so much happening to me at once, and I had really scary situations also happen to me, and I just felt very unsettled, and I didn't know how to work through it, because again, like, I had no one in my life that was going through what I was going through. But you know, as I was losing people, there was new people came into my life and really just helped me get through these really difficult stages. Like, I met a girl who helped me like get into a nonprofit. I met someone who a male friend who wasn't a partner, but just really helped me understand my relationships and like kind of heal. And I think that when you are going through a lot of shit and you don't have like a romantic partner there, you sometimes also just want that male perspective in your life. And for me, you know, I don't have a lot of male friends, and if I do, it's hard to kind of talk about relationships and things like that without someone getting the wrong impression. So I felt like the universe sent me the right people to kind of help me heal a lot of the trauma that I was going through with my romantic life. But I think that, you know, in Western culture, we there's a lot of talk about spiritual awakening being like this really glamorized, beautiful thing. And it's like, yes, it really does start like that. But there's also a lot of work that needs to be done. And the triggering is meant to kind of disrupt your life so you can start to bring awareness to a lot of the baggage that you are hiding deep down inside of you. And for me, it was like I had to, like, it felt like I was digging myself out, you know, and through digging myself out, I was also rooting myself down. Like I was becoming centered. I was becoming centered and whole within myself. But as I was becoming centered and whole within myself, I also had to face a lot of my trauma. And this is trauma dating all the way back, like childhood shit and things that I buried so deep that I didn't, like, I never thought that I was ever going to have to look back on this. And I realized, like, there was so much shit that happened in my life that really became reasons for a lot of decisions I've made, you know, like things that happened in my childhood that created behaviors within me and characteristics and feelings, emotional feelings, you know. For example, like, you know, I grew up in the Bronx, and growing up in the Bronx when I was younger, it was really difficult because you really had to fight, like, for respect. Because if someone punked you in school, like, you would get picked on, like, all the fucking time. And when you grow up in the Bronx, like, people are always ready. Like, people are always ready to, like, fight, you know. It's always on site. And when you grow up in an environment like that, it's kind of hard to not take that with you as you get older. So even though as I moved out of that environment, you know, in terms of like school, I went to you know, college in Westchester, you know, I ended up working in the city. And even though my environment changed and it was no longer like this survival mode to fight, I still felt very defensive, and it became a character trait. So I constantly felt like, is this person trying to check me, you know? Or in a relationship, I constantly felt like I had to be defensive. Or is this person trying to play me? Is this person cheating on me? Is this person, like, you know, is this person who they say they are? Or, you know, just my demeanor, you know, it was something that I carried on with me. And I didn't recognize that, you know, when I was younger or a few years ago. It was only until my spiritual awakening that I was like able to bring a lot of awareness to a lot of these character traits that I created within myself. Something else that I thought about recently in my spiritual awakening was being vulnerable, and like the true quality of being vulnerable, right? And how much that means to as a woman, you know, because I think that vulnerability in our society is really put down, and that's because femininity is put down so much in our society. And I thought it was really interesting because recently I watched this video on TikTok where this girl made this video, and she was just like that she gets weirded out or she feels cringe when she sees people make videos of themselves crying. And you know, it was like a viral video, and some people were commenting like, yeah, like I think it's just so strange that people would record, like take their camera out and record themselves weeping and then post it online, and basically saying like these people are just like seeking attention. And I thought it was so interesting because I used to think like this. I used to feel so weirded out or cringed by people who made videos of themselves crying, or people who shared too much of their lives. In my spiritual awakening, because I had all this awareness, now I started to question like, why is it that we are disgusted almost by people being vulnerable and sharing their vulnerabilities, but we admire and like and love when people share the best part of their lives? Like, we admire celebrities and we admire the ultra wealthy, you know, and when people are, you know, showing us their best life on Instagram, you know, we hit that like button and we're commenting, we're like, yes, we love it. But then when we see people be vulnerable, we're just like, ugh, like don't share that, right? But in actuality, it's when we hit rock bottom, it's when we are down and out, that really helps us become who we are, right? Like when it's not the best of times that creates the person you ultimately become. It's the worst of times. Like the worst of times is when you really become true to you, you know? Like that's when you do the most character building, you know? That's when you really face who you are, and you know, that's really how you develop as a person. So why are we so ashamed of our vulnerability? And especially in a time where there's so much discussion about mental health, you know, why are we still, you know, telling people like this is cringe to share your vulnerability and your sadness or whatever you're going through with people on social media? And I think that there's also a sense of like, not everyone's privileged to have friends and family to talk to about what they're going through, which is the reason why a lot of people go online and they talk about what they're going through, because they have no one, you know? And when we make videos telling people that, you know, it's cringe to cry in a video and post it on TikTok, you're shutting these people out. And it's actually really harmful, because these people end up actually harming themselves, you know? When we've seen constantly like what happens when people feel alone. You know, people end up shooting, you know, having mass shootings in a school because these kids were bullied and they had no outlet, or they end up killing themselves or harming others. And so I think one thing spirituality taught me is like, be open and be understanding and compassionate towards others, and be more aware of your thoughts, because all of your thoughts are not you. And I think that, you know, we live in a society where it's just like constantly have happy feelings, like always, like we don't let ourselves feel sad. Like I feel like sometimes like if you tell people you're feeling sad, they're like, okay, like let's just feel good, let's go do something to feel good. And it's just like, it's so important to sit with your feelings, to sit with the sadness, to sit with, you know, whatever emotions that is negative, to sit with that and to let it go, you know, to feel it and let it go. But because we live in such a world where it's not accepted, people end up just continuously going in a cycle. And spirituality, you know, spiritual awakening, it will not let you, you know, find a shortcut. It won't let you put a band-aid on the issue. When you go through a spiritual awakening, there is no stopping. Like, you can't stop it. Like, it will come after you, because you've already pre-written this in your destiny. So if you are going through a spiritual awakening and you decide like, it's not for me, I can't do this, it's overwhelming, you might think that you can run, but the spiritual awakening will come for you. It'll come for you in by your world falling apart, with triggering, with relationships, with people coming into your life. It will come to you in so many different ways. Like, the universe is just that powerful. So it's not something to also be afraid of. Like, getting through the trauma is probably one of the best things you can do for yourself, because it makes you so much stronger. When you're going through a spiritual awakening, what I want to remind people is that there's not an actual sense of like, there's no end goal. You know, I think like we think that in a spiritual awakening there's going to be like this beautiful end goal, and it's like, yes, there will be like this, the end goal will be like you being centered and whole and so grounded that like the energies around you don't, you know, they don't manipulate you, they don't push you, because you're so grounded in who you are, and you've become whole within yourself. You are your highest self. You are truly who you are born to be. And that is the end goal of a spiritual awakening, right? You finally get to this place. And it's not going to be perfect, because again, we're human, so we're not perfect. But I think that people make it seem like you're going to have like, life is going to be roses and stuff. And it's just like, the thing about happiness is that happiness is not a destination. It's part of the journey. You know, you're going through highs and lows. We need for there to be tragedy and chaos and pain for us to really appreciate the joy and happiness of life. And that's ultimately why we're here. And it's important that we recognize that, and that we're not constantly trying to push ourselves to be happy. I think that's one of the reasons why people are so anxious, because we're living in a world where it's almost like they don't want us to be aware. Like, they don't want us to be self-aware. And it's because it's easier to control a group of people who lack self-awareness. When you're going through a spiritual awakening, there really is no fear. You know, you realize that if you start to feel fear, you're not heading in the right direction. Like, spiritual awakening, yes, there is fear that comes up, but what I mean is, like, when you see these videos of witchcraft, or you see videos of conspiracy theories, right? People think that they're woke, and it's just like, you're afraid of something. And in a spiritual awakening, there's nothing to be afraid of. You know, the only thing to be afraid of is yourself, is your ego self, you know. And I used to think that in a spiritual awakening that I had to kill the ego. And as I go through my spiritual awakening, I recognize that I just have to be aware of my ego and understand that it's not who I am, and that my ego is always going to be there. I can't kill my ego. My ego is part of my human self. It's part of my journey here. But it's important for us to recognize our ego so that we can become truly who we are and separate ourselves from our ego self and our highest self. And it takes a lot of meditation and journaling and reading books and experience to get to this place. And like I said, I started my journey in 2017, and I'm still on it. You know, I've read so many books, and I've, you know, encountered so many different people who have also gone through spiritual awakenings, and the journey, it's never ending once you start it. But it's almost a way of life. A spiritual awakening, it's a way of life. You change your way of life. You change how you think. You change how you perceive the world. You change your values. You change, you know, how you treat others. And the more we awaken, the more we're actually going to be able to live in that benevolent world that we all want to live in. That's why it's so important for us to support each other on our spiritual awakening and not make people feel alone, you know, because when you're going through a spiritual awakening, you're going to be digging up shit that you don't want to really confront. And when you go through that and you have no one to talk to, you're going to come and look for videos like this. You're going to look for people on social media who can relate. And you're going to create a community You know, you're going to start following people who are talking about these types of things, and you're going to relate because no one in your life is actually on that path. But there are people all around the world who are going through this awakening, and it's important that we support each other and understand that we are creating this new energetic grid that is happening all around the world. I'm sure if you're going through a spiritual awakening, you might have heard that we are entering, well, we've already entered the age of Aquarius, and the age of Aquarius brings a lot of feminine energy and balance into the world, because we've been living in, you know, masculinity for a long time. And in femininity, it's not that we're trying to put down masculinity. It's just that we're trying to bring femininity in balance with masculinity. And so this means that we're going to have to be vulnerable. We're going to have more compassion. We're going to deal with our feelings. And there's a lot of strength in dealing with your feelings. There's a lot of maturity and being able to confront your fears and to confront your trauma and be able to move forward and create a better world for yourself and create the life you truly want to live, and not the life that you think that you should be living. I think when I went through my spiritual awakening and I, you know, lost my job, I didn't know what I was going to do about money. It became like this thing that I worried about constantly, and I was just like, I didn't want to do this job, but this was my source of income. And I realized that I was living in this kind of simulation where I was just like, I could only think in this like very narrow way. I couldn't see all my options. And that's because we're almost like pre-programmed, right? And when you go through a spiritual awakening, it's like it's like you literally plug out of this like world that you were living in. And before you can plug into a new one, you're gonna be in the unknown. And in the unknown, it's scary because there's so much uncertainty. You know, you don't know where you're going. You don't know what's next. But it's the best place to be to create the world you actually want to be in. Like, you can't use your past. If you use your past to dictate your future, your past will become your present and your future. So when you are in the unknown, you can actually create from a place of true self. Like, what do you truly want? And when we're in that place of creation, we're mixing with God. You know, we're like kind of in this energetic happening with God, and God is our creator, right? So God is actual creation. So when we're creating, we're also tapping into that godlike energy. And I think that's why so many people think it's like witchcraft and stuff, because human beings are actually really supernatural. Like, we have these supernatural abilities, but because we've been so repressed in our society and we're constantly work and control, where spirituality is like, you don't have to control everything. And for so many people, that's almost foreign, because in order to be successful in Western culture, you have to be working your ass off. You have to have constant, you know, direction. It's really scary to trust the process. I'm trusting the process right now as I make this video. I'm trusting the process right now in my life, and I can tell you it is really scary. And there's moments where I'm chill and I'm good and I'm going with the flow, and then there's moments like, what the fuck am I doing, you know? And that's because it's not something I've ever done before. You know, I think that I've manifested unintentionally in the past, and now I want to manifest intentionally, and I want to have, you know, more direction about what it is I'm trying to bring into my life and why I want to bring this thing into my life and where I want to go from here. But I'm also very open to the universe kind of driving me there. You know, it's like having an Uber driver. You know, you don't call an Uber driver and then tell the Uber driver to get out and go in the back seat while you drive. You sit in the passenger seat and you let the Uber driver take you to your destination. So spirituality kind of works in that same way, where you're just trusting the universe to drive you to where you need to be. Everyone around you is just constantly doing shit. Everyone's constantly hustling. And it's like, there's not a moment for us to just be like to relax, to just be centered, because we got all these bills to pay, and we're constantly on the move. We're constantly trying to make something happen. But in spirituality and in awakening, you're just trying to achieve this peace. You know, that's really what it is. Success from the inside, and then you're able to manifest. And I think that's where I am right now currently in my spiritual journey. It's just like I'm looking to become so grounded and rooted in who I am, and hope. The past 2-3 years have been really difficult, and it's really pushed me, and I hit rock bottom. So once you hit rock bottom, there's only up from there. And so for me to really go up, I really had to just plant myself down and be able to not let everything around me trigger me, and for not everything around me to get a response out of me. You get what I'm trying to say? When you're going through a spiritual awakening, it's really important to find people who are really knowledgeable about this stuff. And it's really important to read different types of books by different types of spiritual gurus. Like, there are so many different types of spiritual books I've read that have competing theories, or they have different types of perceptions of life. Like, I've read books by Joe Dispenza, Deepak Chopra, Neville Garter. There's just so many people, and you know, sometimes there's so many things that they have in that are similar about when they talk about spirituality, and then there's so many things that kind of compete. One of my favorite people is actually a YouTuber called, her name's Christina Lopes, and she's actually I think she was a doctor, like a therapist or something, and then she became like really enlightened. She went through a spiritual awakening. But I love her videos because she really talks a lot about like dealing with your trauma, and like she gives a lot of therapy types of responses and like how to deal with your emotions and feelings. But then she also gives this aspect of spirituality in her videos, where she teaches you not just about like how to deal with your feelings in a therapeutic way, but also in a spirituality way. In a spiritual way. I think that's the best way to deal with your feelings and your trauma and cope, and then be able to really come whole to yourself. And I honestly feel like she's my actual fairy godmother. I love her videos. I think she's one of my favorite people on here, and I think she really gets it, because a lot of the other spiritual teachers, I feel like sometimes, I don't know, sometimes I watch their videos and I'm just like, are you like, I don't know, sometimes I feel like their lifestyle isn't really aligning with what they're saying. I don't know, you guys can watch, but I think she's really a brilliant person. And if you're interested in finding, you know, more spiritual leaders to watch, I think she's an excellent person to kind of help you through your awakening. And she literally has videos about like how to, like, steps on like going through a spiritual awakening, or how to deal with a spiritual awakening, and just so many other things that I think is absolutely important for anyone who's going through an awakening. And I really think that her videos are truly important for the collective who are going through awakening. I don't want to make videos like that because I'm not an expert in the way she is, and I haven't had a lot of training, or I haven't I haven't had a lot of life experiences and like actual spiritual lessons or experiences to kind of give advice in the way she is. I can only speak to my experience. So this is a video about my spiritual awakening, and I just wanted to kind of share what I've been through, because I know that there's so many people who feel so lost on their journey. I'm sorry, there's like Pop Smoke literally blasting outside my room. This is literally what it's like living in the Bronx. It's like 2 in the morning and there'll be Pop Smoke playing outside the house. So anyways, I really just wanted to make this video because I think that so many people are going through spiritual awakening, and I just want to make sure that people don't feel alone or feel like they're doing something wrong, because I know that when I was going through my awakening, I felt like I was so alone. Like, I felt like no one knew what I was going through, and worst, I felt as though I might have been doing something wrong. And you're not doing anything wrong. If like life seems to be falling apart, just know you're on the right track. Like your life is supposed to fall apart. Your life is like your job, your relationship, your friends, your family. Like a lot of these things are going to fall apart, and you should be prepared for that. You know, not trying to say that you should force any of those things to happen. God, please don't force any of that to happen. But just know that if it does happen, it's part of the process. And you know, a lot of these relationships and that I lost, when I was losing them, I trusted that I would reconnect when the time was right. You know, I just knew that at this juncture in my life that I needed to do this part of my journey on my own. And although it was extremely difficult and daunting, it was necessary for my own growth. And it's best that you understand that before you lose those relationships, because you don't want to try to salvage a lot of those relationships that are not going to be helpful to you, because some of those people might try to steer you away, and you don't want that. You know, if the relationships start to kind of fall apart, allow for it. And it's going to suck. It will suck. You know, it was probably one of the most, like, I lost a really close person in my life. You know, I've lost really close people in my life. And there were times in my journey where I wanted to go back and like fix those relationships, but I also understood that they were not meant to be part of this chapter in my life. And there's a reason for that. And I just have to trust that. So if you're going through anything like that, just know that it's okay. It's part of the process. And if those people are meant to be, you will find a way back to each other, especially when the love is real. You know, like there's some of these relationships that I truly love these people. I also went through like a twin flame thing too, where I had to truly surrender to the process. And it's hard. Like sometimes it's still hard, because when you love someone and you truly love someone, it's hard. It's hard to just let go, because it feels like you're giving up, but it's not giving up. You know, it's surrendering and trusting that that there is a such thing as faith. And the only way to truly trust in faith is to really just believe in yourself. You know, believe that you are worthy. Believe that if it's not this person, it'll be someone even better. And if it's not this friend, there's an even better friend coming along. And for me, trusting the process has been the biggest challenge, because again, like I said, it's not something I've done before, especially with my life. So you're kind of watching these videos and watching me transform as I go. You know, like I'm planning on traveling for a whole year, and one of my first stops is to go to a retreat and just kind of go somewhere quiet and like meditate and like truly I don't want to say heal myself, because I think we're all healed, but like truly get down to who I am, and find out what's blocking me from really achieving what I want to achieve, and what's blocking me from becoming all that I can be. So, you know, that's just where I am in my spiritual journey. And, you know, I think that it's important to create a community where people are just being honest about what they're going through, and not trying to make their spiritual journey seem like it's like all roses and butterflies, because it's really not. I've seen so many people post these videos of like, and pictures of them like living their best life and a spiritual awakening, and it's just like, is that really a spiritual awakening? Like, your life has to fall apart. Your life has to, like, who you are has to like kind of fade, and everything you know, you think you know, you'll have to surrender it. Like everything you believe, you thought, you value, like at some point in your journey, you're gonna have to like relinquish that, so that you have like this clean state. You have this kind of clean slate, and so you can then work from a place of like true awareness, and see the world through like a whole different lens versus the lens that have been given to you. And I think that's really important to share, because a lot of people go into a spiritual awakening holding on to beliefs and values and thoughts that they had before, and they're holding on to it, and it's like a spiritual awakening will make you let it go. Like, you will have to surrender it at some point. So yeah, you know, a spiritual awakening isn't all roses, and it's not this like fantasy, dreamy, heaven-like thing, but it's not that it's never going to be. I just wanted to make a video to be honest about like the reality of a spiritual awakening, and basically also to tell people like you can't control when that awakening happens, and you can't control what shows up and what gets triggered. You really have to just submit yourself to being present and just going through the shits. I would love to know what you guys thought about this video, if you related, if you didn't. I just want to share my experience, and I'm still going through my experience, so I'll make like more follow-up videos about where I'm going and how I'm feeling, and if any of my thoughts change. Again, like, nothing I'm saying is like set in stone. How I'm feeling will change, just as anyone does in life. You know, we're constantly changing as human beings, but this is where I am right now, and it's been like a few years since my spiritual journey. And I'm not saying that I'm gonna make a follow-up video to, you know, correct what I'm saying in this video, but more of like, where have I expanded, and where have I come so far from this video. So I would love to know what you guys thought about this video. Please leave a comment below, thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and subscribe if you haven't already. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you guys at my very next video. Bye.